Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to Seasoned Voices Radio. I'm your host, Simone de Haas, and today I am joined by the delightful, entrepreneurial, and altogether magnificent woman, Pat Armistead. So Pat is a professional speaker, an author, a radio host, and also the world's first joyologist. So welcome to the show, Pat.
Thank you so much. Delighted and excited to see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know because both of us had a very creative background, it could end up going anywhere. But I would like to actually kick off the conversation by asking you, not everybody may understand what joyology is, which is, a principal part of who Pat Armistead is and also the business and the work you bring to the world. So can you please explain for our listeners what the world's first joyologist actually is and does?
In 2001, I gave myself that title, and it was following a series of losses. And in the middle of a conversation with a magician in South Australia, the term joyology came to me, and I thought, we've got radiology, pathology, hematology, but no joyology. I'm going to be a joyologist. So I had no idea what that was going to happen or mean. And the next 15 months were really digging deep to see what I could bring forth from the past and what I might create with a vision of helping people find joy when it seems there's none. I had been through a series of losses, and in my choices, created an incredible pathway to a new career.
And it's such an important point you make there, actually, which is about finding joy when it seems that there is none. That's so powerful. And I think certainly where we find ourselves here, towards the end of 2022, that joy can seem somewhat lacking. So what was it that you discovered on the path to becoming the world's first joyologist and actually bringing that work to the world? What were the things that helped you find the joy in the everyday when, as you said, you had already suffered quite a significant number of losses?
Well, I think in the early 2000s, I really got present to the wisdom from my years nursing. I had 20 years nursing. And then I had another 11 years in advertising, producing commercials for television. And as joyology came together, I saw, I'm developing here my compassionate and my creative self with a vision to serve humanity. And that vision grew as I drew together the threads because there was no past model to draw on. I was the creator, so needed to be building it. And in 2004, I went on a tour with Pat Adams across Russia's orphanages for 16 days, and I spent a year preparing for that journey. I did improv acting training, I did clown school training twice, because I never did learn to juggle and never opened the box. I did storytelling and went to the School of Philosophy for a year. And all of those things prepared me, interestingly enough, to be in clown persona. My clown persona was very like this chap, Doubting Thomas. And to present myself as a compassionate clown. And on that tour, I think the most remarkable thing that happened was I had an encounter at the Deaf, Dumb and Blind Institute. This little girl in a blue velvet dress came towards me, and we just allowed things to unfold. We just allowed things to happen. And she took me by the hand, sat me down in this other room and started playing with my earrings. And in that moment, I felt joy welling up. I had no idea what was happening, but there was something going on. And I was like in this anticipatory phase, and she started to hum. And as she hummed, I thought, oh, she's deaf. I could tell by the tonal quality of the voice that she was deaf.
Mm-hmm.
And so she hummed for a time, and then she stopped. She's still holding my earrings. And when she stopped, I thought, my turn. So I hummed. She hummed and I hummed for nearly an hour. No words were exchanged. And it's the most profoundly intimate, present experience I've ever had, because in that time frame, I did not have one stray thought.
Mm.
And it was that moment that really opened me up to how I would be the clown on that tour. And each day I saw less and less I needed the makeup. I might only have 2 little dots on my cheek rather than a full-blown clown persona, or I might just take my nose along for the trip. And in doing that, I just really, it was all an inner journey. I had done a lot of street theatre, moving statues, and when you're doing those performance things, you get very present to the what it's like to very, very slowly open your hand and perhaps point to somebody. When you get in your body enough to do that you're not buffeted by the storm, it's almost a meditative state. And when I returned from that tour, I actually felt more vital and alive than I've ever felt in my whole life. And it was because I was present to it all. It was a really sad, glad experience. These children lived in abject poverty. There are 1.5 million of them. Their circumstances haven't changed to this day. And to be able to bring joy into that arena in the moment, using just yourself. Yes, we were in costume, but the costume became less and less important. It was more about presenting as you're bringing your essence into the room and allowing something to unfold. There were no rules. Pat Adams says there are no rules. He said, if you don't get on with your roommate, too bad. If you don't like the food, too bad. You're here for this experience. And that trip really gave me permission then, when I returned, to really step into and own the wisdom that I'd accrued, and not just from that last 12 months learning, but there was this sense of I can really stand in my space now in this weird joyology role and take it. I began presenting in the health sector because I knew that area so well, and then gently was going into business, but a lot of businesses weren't ready to hear from a joyologist. Can't put that in the accounts book. What would you?
Yeah, like what accounting line do I put that against?
But as I grew, so confident in that stand and being able to own and really hold the wisdom rather than being afraid to give voice to it, because when we're in clown persona, people tend to think you're a bit of a fool, and they don't see the wisdom in being able to bring humour forth.
Well, that's fascinating. Yeah, absolutely. And I love everything that you've shared. And there's so many things firing off in my brain at the moment. I'm just going to try and anchor on one of them. And that is the wisdom that is actually underneath that persona of the clown. And of course, that goes back, centuries where, the kings and queens would have their fool or their jester at their side who, and, you know, you think about Shakespeare and the role of the fool in a lot of Shakespeare's plays and dramas, and they are actually the voice of reason, but couched in a way that nobody can take offence. So I think that's a fascinating juxtaposition for me of having that wisdom, but it is wrapped up in humour and in a way, I suppose it makes it a little easier for people to digest.
Yes. Yeah, they delivered the bad news.
Yeah. But with a smile, so that they wouldn't get killed for being, you know, the bearer of bad news, I guess. But also the thing that I really loved about what you've just shared with us is that piece about recognizing the wisdom in your own story. And of course, that's what Seasoned Voices is all about. And the fact that you said, you know, you gave yourself permission to actually own that wisdom. And I think that's such a powerful point you make, because I think there are so many times when we don't do that. We don't give ourselves the permission, or we don't recognize that what we've gone through is helpful or useful. You know, and we're often looking outside ourselves for that validation instead of saying, you know, that 20 years of experience, that 40 years of experience, that work that I did as a nurse or in philosophy, or, you know, for myself, you know, all of the work that I did in theatre and coaching people to a performance and developing themselves as performers. You know, it's all so relevant and useful. And, you know, the wisdom that comes out of all of those different experiences we have, they're vital for helping us move forward.
And I think, you know, when I excelled at art through high school, all I ever wanted to do was be an artist and study art. And my mother said to me, well, that's lovely, dear, but I really think you should get a proper job. And so it was.
Yes.
And when I look back, I used my humour through all of those years, but not consciously. It was inherent. And I knew it had to be appropriate. I could, you know, hinge on the borders a bit with patients, but there were times when I didn't, and I'd be in matron's office she's definitely given me a bit of a talking to. But in the, so I saw that was there and an inherent thing, and it was not developed consciously. Like, I didn't go and do any of those performance things at that time. When I finished nursing, I had been burnt out. I ended up with my own production studio, producing commercials, filming for the news. So it was like art school that I never went to. Huge creative expression. And then when my world collapsed and all these things happened, I really, by merit of my choices at the time, was able to move through that space and create for myself a new life in the face of not knowing. So that pioneering thing, but I just knew I can bring together now, somehow, harness all the gifts of my compassionate self, all those creative elements, and create something new, and it was brand new, even though I'm still grieving.
And that's such an important point that you make, I think, which is about recognizing those different gifts, recognizing that, you know, that world that you inhabited had its own set of gifts for you, and the world of nursing would have had that, and, you know, the art that you undertook over those many years, and your expression, your self-expression in those forums. You know, they've all come together, haven't they? And I think that's one of the things that, you know, for many of us, you know, we look at, you know, thinking about it as, you know, we're coming to the end of the year, and then we're, you know, looking down the barrel of a brand new year, and, you know, people get really hung up on, you know, well, what's my purpose going to be? You know, what am I going to do with myself in this brand new year, and hopefully it'll be better than the previous. And I think we get a little hung up on the idea of having a purpose. And you said something really valuable, which is, I think it was that piece about it's okay to not know. And it's okay to use the signposts from those different elements of your life up until now to say, well, this is something I love doing, and this is something I love doing. As you say, the compassionate, creative elements of yourself which have helped you to create choices for your future. So in terms, yeah, go.
Sorry, I was just going to say, sometimes other people look in on us, and they can give us a sentence that will change our lives. And my PR person over there in New Zealand, where I was living at the time, she said to me, so really, Pat, she said, you're like a spiritual midwife delivering people out of the darkness. And it was like a sentence, it was like, oh my, I can't believe you said that, you know. So other people can see, and then we recognise it. It's like, yes. And then another person, I did some coaching with a lady, and she gave everyone a sentence at the end of the 2 days. And she said to me, she said, well, Pat Armistead, how would it be if you called yourself a 21st century shaman here to raise consciousness on the planet? Now, that's not a sentence I would have used prior to that time. And I don't use that all the time now, but that meld of things, my presence now is much more conscious, and I can sit in and claim that higher consciousness. And I feel a bit like I'm a bridge. I'm a bridge between an old ploddy kind of way of thinking to a new, freer expression. Very grounded in serving and creating something better for us moving forward. Yeah. And that's sustained me this 2 or 3 years through the current phenomena that we've been moving through.
And I think it's wonderful when people give us something like that helps springboard us maybe to the next level of our business or just the next level of our own growth. Sometimes, I've been very fortunate and had a few people make different comments for me too that have helped me like really look at and go, oh, really? Oh, I would never have used that particular combination of phrases, for instance. And so it's great because it's an eye opener, but it also is very freeing because, that it just gives you something that you think, oh, wow, that just opens up different possibilities. And I guess that's something that we, could talk about in terms of, like when we think about our purpose, particularly as seasoned voices, our purpose changes from, I know I had a specific purpose in mind when I was 20, and that evolved then when I was 40 and 60, I believe it's constantly evolving. It's not a fixed thing. It's dynamic, like our stories are dynamic. They move and flow. And so, what was right and perfect for you at 20, you'll look back at that and you go, oh my God, I was thinking so small. I'm a spiritual midwife. You would never have called yourself that at 20 years old. So as we step into the next season of 2023, what advice would you have for people who are looking, who might be standing at a bit of a crossroads of their life and not sure how to move ahead or what to bring with them from the past even? So what would be a couple of your top tips to help people who might be in that situation?
I actually found I had one piece that I was bringing that I would contribute as we came to a close, and that was from Stephen Jenkinson's book, Come of Age.
Yeah.
My business is 21, and I really feel I've come of age.
Oh, how fabulous. Love it.
I've reached an age now where I can be I no longer pulled off the path by people, by put downs, ridicule, who do you think you are? So much better now to stand firm and also to claim my elderhood. So I've got two pieces, and I'll read from the Come of Age book, if I may.
Yes, I know the book, and I probably know the quote you're going to read from. Go for it.
But the other thing, just before I came on with you, I was listening to Sad Guru. I don't know if you've ever come across him.
No.
But he said, if terrible things happen to us, we have two choices. We can have it become our wisdom, or we can have it become our wound. We must become wiser than others sooner than others. So I thought that was like, fancy that turning up 10 minutes before.
Synchronicity, it's a wonderful thing.
And then from Stephen's book, if I may, on page 153, he says we must go back down into that river of time now and wonder, if you would, about the same questions we began with. Where does the river of time bring everything and everyone to? What is its way? The answer seems properly to be that the river of time goes to the past. When you obey its current, you are facing the past, which is out there ahead of you. That is where the river of time will bear you to, is bearing you to. You and I are headed towards all that has gone before. That is what is before you, and that is what is to become of you. In this one sentence, you can see the spiral of time making its elliptical way. What is to become of you is already before you, neither is it, only promise. So a fairly deep phrase, but I think that spiral that he refers to is for many the confusion that people are feeling, because they're kind of spinning through a lot of change. It's a bit hard to
hard to keep our balance and kind of know which way is up sometimes, for sure. Yeah. There's some fabulous words in the Come of Age book. I just started to read that a little while, about 6 months ago, I think. So there's some fabulous quotes in there as well. So.
Yes.
One final question, and this is more to do with your joyology. What is one way that we can open ourselves to experiencing more joy in our lives?
My experience, I've worked a lot with my own pain, but also other people in pain all my life, especially back when I was nursing. And I really came to see joy can be a curious mix of pleasure and pain. And perhaps the best example of that would be childbirth. But there are, I think, when we're really present to life, when we know and understand our emotional body and our emotional repertoire, how we can respond to those emotions, then we can be with and feel, I call it intimacy. We can feel this profound intimacy in our shared experience of somebody else's dilemma. You know, when we can sit with that and not be buffeted by it necessarily. There's, in that intimacy is amazing connection. That little girl and I, she felt my humming through my hands, and when that happened, it opened me up to her hands were actually healing, but so was I healing, and the wonder of this thing that we still are coming to understand just how interconnected we really are.
Yeah.
And the joy we can bring with our presence.
And I think that's the key, isn't it? That's by simply being present with what is, rather than agitating against it or trying to make it different than it is, we are then open to possibilities of joy. We see maybe joy where we may not have seen it before, because we are present with whatever is going on, as opposed to wishing it was something different. And I suppose that's, particularly helpful for us moving into, again, a year that we don't know what might come. And, so being able to maintain that sense of connection to self and to others, I think is going to be very, very important. As you say, that interconnectedness of us all is going to be really important for us all, I think, moving forward, no matter where we find ourselves in our lives, what season we might be going through, whether it's one of joy or sorrow or, major upheaval. I think being present with whatever that looks like in your life is also a great way to stay a little more calm amid all the chaos as well.
Yeah, I know through the lockdowns that we had here in Australia, I live alone. I don't do isolation particularly well. I love people. And it was like, right, we're going to need different things sorted here. And so, if I wasn't speaking online, then I made sure I was making 2 or 3 phone calls a day so that I had that human connection. And I just committed, I'm going to paint every day. So I know my 2 peak moments. When I speak and the lights come on for somebody, job done. And then when I'm painting and creating, I don't need anybody. So those 2 places are enough to fulfill my life.
Yeah.
So, it was open to me to make some choices of how am I going to orchestrate that.
Yeah.
And so I have, it was a somewhat limited experience, but I still created it anyway. And it was enough.
And as you say, finding those pieces in your own life that you can bring together that actually create that sense of calm or sense of peace or connection for yourself. All right.
When I'm opening a keynote, I often say, if you leave with nothing else today, let it be this. You are here to bring joy, not just into your own life, but into the lives of others.
Well, I think you brought a lot of joy to me and our audience here today. So I want to say thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and a little of your story as well. And if you want to find out more about Pat and the work that she's doing in the world and the world of Joyology, you can go and find her at her website, which is www.patarmistead.com. I'll put the links in the show notes for you. So thank you once again, Pat, for being my guest here today. I know that there are so many different topics we could talk about, and it's been a delight to just hear a little bit more. And I love the story that you shared about that young girl. And I think a few of us are going to go away and go, okay, I'm just going to does that really work? Go and try that out. So thank you so much for being my guest today, and we look forward to our next conversation.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, and good luck with the program.